So one of the things that I'm trying to do across this season is to make my titles and my thumbnails make intros a little more obsolete. You know what's going on. Do I even need to explain it? Your club's first win. And like I tell my missus, when I make homemade curry paste, we've got to put some spice in here. So look, guys, if I'm right, congrats. You got to win. If I'm wrong because your team won before their predicted win, then your team had a win. Who cares? And look, if you lose the game that I say your first win is coming and you still haven't had a win yet, it's my fault and I jinxed you. So there is no downside for you in this video. So let's do this. Adelaide's first win in round 1 against St Kilda. This is just one of those times where it's just a club that I have a little bit more faith in beating the other one. The Crows are at home. I don't really know what to make of the Saints because of their injuries, Marshall, Philippou, these kinds of things. Could the Saints get the job done? They could. They can start a season reasonably well. The Crows, they're under pressure with Matty Nix and all of these kinds of things. Are going to need to get off to a really good start. Best chance to do it is here, and I think they can. Brisbane's first win against West Coast will be in round 2, which means Brisbane are going to go 0-2 to start the season because opening round and then, of course, round 1. Couple of difficult games there that I'm not going to spoil if you don't know because it'll spoil a couple of teams' first wins if you think about it that way. So I'm not going to do that. I think there is every chance that Brisbane go 0-3, 1-2-1, 3-0 to start their season. Do I think it's a little bit spicy that I'm going to go with West Coast here? Yeah, because the other 2 games are, of course, very winnable. They're the reigning premiers. They're more than winnable. But, hey, I don't think they do. And I could be wrong. I was wrong about Brisbane last year. Carlton's first win is going to come against Richmond in round 1. They're not playing opening round this year. The Blue Baggers, they're just going to be better than the Tigers, although I think the Tigers fully fit before, of course, the on-field injuries and things that they're going to have to counter. Of course, under Adam Uze, this is probably going to be the best form that they may be able to produce going into a game. You would think if they're entirely healthy going through the match sim, or they've got the majority, maybe 18, 19, 20 of their best 23 in the side at that point, then they might be a little bit of a chance. But if Carlton are going to be anything close to a serious team this year and go back to finals again for the 3rd time in as many seasons and do a little bit better than their last couple of campaigns. Yes, they made a prelim final and were up by 5 goals in it, but the Blues fans will be wanting to take the next step, and winning this game will be a step closer to that. I've got Collingwood beating the Bulldogs in round 2. It could be a really weird start for the Pies because, again, this would be their 3rd game of the season with a couple of tough ones to start. Again, not going to spoil what they are for those of you that do not know or don't remember because that would be boring and would make the video a little more crap, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think this is a night game. Might be a Friday night game, this one. Off the top of my head, I may be wrong about it, but the Pies are going to get some early wins. I'm not convinced they're going to be a top 4-5 side as of yet. That can change the closer we get to the start of the season. The Dogs are also dealing with injuries and dealing with being mid at this point in time. Adam Treloar is not going to be there. What's going to happen with English Jamara to start the season? Who knows? So, yeah, I think the Pies get a win here. Essendon's first win coming against Port Adelaide in round 3. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, round 2 is a bye for the Bombers, but considering that one of their 2 games to kickstart their campaign is against the Hawks, this is probably more hope and optimism than anything else. The Bombers, are they going to be better than the Hawks this year? I personally don't think so. Do I think that if the Hawks do get off to a little bit of a bad start, because they still did last year, so we'll have to see how that goes, and the Hawks were relatively fit last year. Yes, they didn't have Will Day, but other than that, the Hawks weren't a massively injured side at the start of last year. No Blank, of course, but he's not going to be there again. With an upgrade Battle Barras, I just have to believe that the Hawks win that game. So the Bombers drop that one. Spoiler alert, I think they're going to lose opening round as well. So here we are. Freo's first win coming against the Swans in round 2. It says round 3 in the graphic. I apologise for that. It is round 2. They kickstart their campaign against the Cats at GMHBA Stadium. Do the Dockers. Don't think they're going to get the job done there, even though I'm high on the Dockers this year. Geelong at GMHBA is just a really difficult task. Yes, they did win a final there, but it was like 2013, guys. It has less than nothing to do with the group. Now, I think Fife and Walters would be the only 2 players on their list that played in that game. So, how much does that weigh up? Nothing, I don't think. I don't even know if that question made sense, but this is where I think they're going to get the job done. Freo and Sydney at Optus kind of create close games that no one remembers because they were crap to watch. it could be that again. Geelong's first win coming against Brisbane in round 0. Now we get to the upsets. And speaking of upsets, there is going to be a little bit of an upsets-based competition that you, as fans of Daz Talks Footy, are going to be able to join. More details on that closer to the start of the season. But yeah, this is probably going to be my opening round surprise, I suppose you could call it, in terms of the Cats getting the job done. I'm high on the Cats. I'm not saying I'm low on Brisbane by any means, but they've had the shortest preseason, and you can bring in all of these kinds of things. Collingwood, after the 2023 flag, were lackluster against the Giants at the start of last year, so maybe that happens again. Of course, no Joe there, so figuring out how that aligns. Geelong's defense, really good, and I think they might be able to pip them. Yes, I know that 2 games ago, Brisbane played Geelong at the MCG and beat them. I know that, but picking the favourites every time, what a boring video that would be. Gold Coast's first win coming in round 0 as well, or opening round, against the Bombers. Just like playing Richmond last year, to be perfectly honest. Gold Coast, it's probably going to be hot. If not, it's going to be dewy. That's the way that Gold Coast want to play. I just don't think the Bombers are going to be able to go with them conditions-wise, to be perfectly honest. And my sneaky Coleman medal pick, Ben King, might get off to a good start here. I'll put him down for 4+. GWS's first win coming against the Pies. I talked about the fact the Pies might start their season slowly a little bit before, so the Giants get the job done. I know in my 3 bold calls I said the Giants may not be a top 8 side, or I'm struggling at the moment to fit them in to my top 8, so why am I picking them here? Well, they're at home. They beat them in this game last year, having, a longer off period, which I know Collingwood would have got this time, and depending on hopefully Nick Dacos being fit, although he played in match simulation not too long ago at the time of recording, so fingers crossed he is okay. But I just think the Giants get off to a good start at home. Yes, Collingwood travel well, and there are 20 other reasons you could give me that the Pies might get the job done, but Giants for me. The Hawks kickstart their campaign with a win over the Swans. No, this isn't just a Hawks fan that's going, we're going to go 26-0 and win the flags, we're going to go undefeated. Nothing like that, and I think the Hawks, if it's not this game, it's going to be the Bombers game, as I explained before. I just think the SCG with the high half forwards maybe getting away from Melbourne a bit, so maybe it's a little bit less emotional for the Hawks to be perfectly reasonable. Yes, they did lose their last interstate game, but it was by 3 points, guys, for crying out loud. Like, it's not that big of a deal, to be honest. I think their smalls are going to be able to get up the ground beautifully. I think guys like Newcomb and Day and Warple through that midfield are going to be able to have better opportunities to get on the scoreboard early. Maybe Massimo D'Ambrosio from halfback wing might be able to get on the scoreboard, and maybe CJ can launch a long bomb from 55. When does footy start again? I kind of need it to start now. We've got Melbourne's first win is round 3 against Gold Coast. Melbourne fans, I apologise if you don't like this, but I just think it's going to be a reasonably tough start for them. Gold Coast don't really travel to the MCG all that well, so as boring as it sounds, and I apologise that this may not be as in-depth as maybe you want it to be, I just think this is going to be the D's best chance early in the season to get a W. So I'm going to say they will. And the reason why that Melbourne game against Gold Coast was my selection is partly because the week before, North are going to beat Melbourne. Now, I think the Kangaroos are going to start 1-1 this year, so they start against the Bulldogs and then go to Melbourne. I think the Doggies, spoiler for the Doggies, by the way, is just going to be able to get the job done. I know they've got no Jamara English, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Chalor as well, obviously. But, again, I said to myself, gun to my head, if you will, which of these 2 games, because I do believe they are going to start 1-1 or better. Who knows? They were 2-0 last year, or 2-0 2 years ago, I should say, and just collapsed from then on, obviously, and then missed out on Harley Reid as a draft selection. But, Colby McKerch is a pretty damn good consolation prize, to be perfectly honest. And I just went, who do I think is more likely to win, the Bulldogs or the D's? I picked the Bulldogs. So here we are for North. Port Adelaide's first win coming against the Pies in round 1. Yes, it sounds weird that I think that Port Adelaide are going to beat Collingwood and then lose to Essendon. They do have a better record at Marvel. This game is at the G. So what the hell are you doing here, Daz, is a reasonable question to ask, and my logic behind it may be that emotionally, big club, MCG, what does Port Adelaide's start of the season look like? Can Jack Lukosius get himself into that side? What's their rebounding looking like off half-back? I just think momentum-wise, they might be able to get the job done here. Maybe Mitch Georgiades has that big breakout 5-6 goal game that really puts him on the map to start the season. Who knows? But I like Port this year. I'm not saying I don't like Collingwood, of course, but I don't hate Port's chances at doing something. I think they're limited on what they'll be able to do at the end of the year. But, I don't anticipate a cliff coming, and I did my video on the Hornet, who might go bunter in this game. So I'll take Port against the Pies here. Richmond's first win against former interim coach Minnie McQualter, round 9 against the Eagles. Yeah, sorry, Richmond fans. I really wanted to find you an upset. I nearly went with the team that I'm actually going to talk about next, to be honest with you. So I am sorry about that. But the storyline about McQualter, I think that's actually in WA, which might be a little bit more difficult, obviously, compared to a Victorian side. But this is what I've got for you. Again, it's probably not the most in-depth analysis, but they've got to get a win at some point, do the Tigers, and maybe they are a better chance, when the season starts, to maybe catch a team by surprise, circa the Swans on Easter Saturday or Sunday, whichever it was last year. That's definitely possible. Just couldn't go with one. And St Kilda's first win comes against the Tigers. I don't know whether this one's Maddie's match or if they play again this season, then that one would obviously be Maddie's match. But the Saints, again, are probably... I'm looking at this like just don't be that side that loses to Richmond first. And yes, I know, like I said before, that Sydney game, wasn't as bad because the cliff hadn't really come for Richmond yet. It was still an upset, don't get me wrong. But that cliff did not come for the Tigers at that point in time. But we know the cliff is here for the Tigers, so it kind of feels a little bit like watching the Utah Jazz or the Washington Wizards now in the NBA. It's kind of like, don't lose to that team, right? And as I say that today, not only did the Wizards beat the Wolves, but another crap team, the Brooklyn Nets, beat the Houston Rockets, even though they didn't have Alperen Sengun, but that's a whole other thing. They can't lose this, surely. That's why I've put it here. Call it cautious optimism for the Saints at the start of the year. Got Sydney's first win coming against Brisbane, which again might be a shock to a few people because, they've got the Hawks, they've got Brisbane, and I think they've got Freo in that first 3 games as well. So 3 pretty good teams, to be honest, depending on how you feel about the Dockers. Of course, I'm pretty high on them in 2025, but they've got to win 1, if not 2, surely, don't they? And 3 implies that you reckon there is a greater than 50% chance that they are not winning finals or not playing in finals, let alone winning one next year. I'm struggling to get Sydney out of the top 8. They did have a dip in 23, of course, but they still played finals. So 0-3, really difficult to come back from, as we know. But the Hawks did it. Yeah, it's difficult, not impossible. I don't think they're going to be 0-3, and this is the game that I've picked. Got West Coast's first win coming against the Bombers. Kind of hilarious to me because Essendon going to Perth, just from memory, I haven't actually looked this up, but their record at Optus Stadium seems bad to me. I just feel like they go over as like a 3-goal favourite, and West Coast either win or cover nearly every single time. Right, and it's crazy, and neutrals and media kind of go, how did Essendon lose that? And every other neutral fan that actually watches footy kind of goes, because that's what happens. This is the way that it goes. And can it happen again to celebrate Minnie McQualter's first win as an AFL coach? Yeah, I think it can. And that leads us into the Bulldogs, and I've got them beating North for their first win. Again, just call it some optimism, a little bit like St Kilda in that game against the Tigers. Yes, Jamara may not be there, and we'll find out more about what's happening with him, I'm sure, as time goes on. I do not like the fact that the Jamara thing was reported the way it was, but that's not for this video. Trelaw not going to be there. We're going to see what happens with Tim English. Liam Jones went down with a hamstring scare in Queensland, so they're going to be ripe for the picking, and I just think they're going to stumble at the second hurdle instead of the first one. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if North got up in that game. So there you go. Comment below, guys, what you think. Yes, I could be right, and your team gets a win. Awesome. I could be wrong because your team got a win earlier than this game. Awesome. You've experienced a win. And think of it this way. If you're still owing whatever you are at your club's point, it's my fault. I jinxed it. So there's no downside to this. So keep it civil in the comments. Click the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. I hope you're having a very nice start to the week, even though it is boiling hot at the moment. I am a sook when it comes to the summer, let me tell you. But I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I will see you in the next one.